Good evening, everybody, and welcome to this edition of Crunch Time here on ASTV Productions. I'm your host, Joe Hamilton, along with Theo once again. Theo, how you doing, man?
Today, my friend, is a bittersweet day. Beautiful outside. Certainly some memories going on today. It's a very memorable day for some. But I will say it's been a pretty good day thus far, man. Pretty nice up here in the north.
60 degrees, man. I remember talking to you not that long ago, and it was like negative 20.
Yeah, I mean, I took pictures this time last year, Joe, and I had 2 feet of snow, but I had grass under the fire pit because we had so many outdoor bonfires. But it was starting to warm up right about now. But last year, I remember about this time we had a bit of a blizzard action, so a little bit of snow fell, but nonetheless, we could use some rain, but it's nice and dry outside. We're enjoying the weather. Good to kick the ball around, hit the ball 250 feet or so in the air, and show the boy I still got it.
Yeah, it's good to get out and play some catch with your boy. Kick the ball around. That's awesome, and I'm kind of glad to see. March and April are usually iffy months. April anywhere is going to get warmer. But it's nice to see it get warmer in Canada because you had a brutal winter.
We've had quite a difficult winter, not just with weather, but just not being able to enjoy the winter the way it's supposed to be enjoyed. Now it's time to get out and get some action.
Now it's time to get out. You got the vaccine coming. It's things are looking up. That's for sure. So you talked about it's kind of a sad anniversary. Go ahead with that because I know you wanted to give some shout outs and just go ahead.
I'm not going to dwell too much on it, but up here, especially in Manitoba, neighboring province of Saskatchewan, April the 6th, 2018, a very sad and tragic loss for one of our Saskatchewan Junior Hockey League programs, the Humboldt Broncos. Forever strong, 29 forever. 16 lives were lost. 3 were injured in a 2-vehicle collision. The bus was on its way to its, a playoff game. Hearts and condolences and sympathies going out to the families involved, as well as the Bronco program. I know a lot of discussion has happened already up here in Canada. Just want to let the viewers down south remind them that today is a very sad day. Hashtag Humboldt Strong, hashtag Forever 29. Truly one of those days that we will not forget. And I will tell you that my hockey sticks are outside the front door in memory of them. So my thoughts and prayers still with the families and everyone that was affected in Humboldt, Saskatchewan.
I remember I didn't get to see the next game for Humboldt after, but it was very emotional. Pretty sure they won that game. How couldn't you win that game with all of that, pent up, how do I put it? Adrenaline. They probably had some adrenaline going on. They wanted to win for their boys. How did that work though, Theo? How did it work bringing up other guys? That happened during a season. So
that was the playoffs. Yeah. So it was pretty much done right after that. There was no way that team was continuing, and they came back the following year and had a commemorative game and a moment of silence and whatnot. They didn't win that game, but just to get back to what that team did the emotions, the pent-up emotions, the adrenaline, like you mentioned. It's hard to play a game no matter how long has passed. And truly, the program is starting to build again, starting to get stronger again. And, the SJHL is a good league to be a part of. And Humboldt's a really good member of that organization and that program. So kudos to them to get back on the horse, so to speak. And, hopefully we get to see a regular season with all the teams involved again soon.
Hopefully we do. And it's sad to think about that, but it's good to move on from that. And, maybe it makes Humboldt that much better, in the long run. And it has. I mean, what is the history of that Humboldt franchise? Is it a storied history? Is it something that...
That's someone I could have story time with Roy McGoran, who's the play-by-play host of the Humboldt Broncos now, old friend of ours here at ASTV. He and I started doing color and play-by-play 5 or 6 years ago together, and he moved on to Humboldt and took on a position that was open for them. And he's the one you want to ask. He's got the ins and outs, the stories. I just know that they're a great part of an 11-team program in Saskatchewan. Good, hard-hitting team. Plays well for the community. Humboldt's a small town. It's not a really big town, but they love their evenings. That barn is always full, and truly a great place to go watch a good game of hockey and some up-and-coming stars through the Junior A program into the Dub and then wherever they go afterwards. So, Humboldt's a really good program here in the SJ, and lots of good players have come through.
So you talk about the Dub. Why don't you give a Dub update? What have you seen so far? What are some of the things that you've liked from the Dub Hub?
Well, I've really kept, from the Eastern, so it's split up into an East Hub where it's got the 7 teams, Saskatchewan and the 2 from Manitoba. Alberta has its own, but Alberta's allowed to travel a little bit. The Southern Division is able to play with the 4 teams in Washington, the 1 in Oregon. But I've really concentrated my work on the Eastern Hub, which involves both the Brandon Wheat Kings and the Winnipeg Ice. Winnipeg Ice are clearly showing themselves to be one of the strongest, if not the strongest team in the East Hub. Peyton Krebs, who's an AHL and Vegas Golden Knights property, played in the World Juniors this past winter, was playing with the A below the Vegas Knights, and moved back to the Dub so he can get more playing time. And I spoke with a gentleman earlier today about how important it is for players that have the development and the skills and that instinct ability to make creative offensive plays on the ice. Yet when they get moved to an AHL affiliate or a team that might not consider them be the strengths, they lose their minutes, they lose the touches on the puck, and they have to kind of fill in a secondary or a tertiary role onto a different organization. Peyton Krebs is thriving with the Winnipeg Ice because he's playing first-line minutes, which he should be. He's playing power play and penalty kill, which he should be. And he's really showing the Knights that they've got a great prospect in him. Now, we can't go without talking about Connor Bedard and Jaeger. Jaeger's playing for the Moose Jaw Warriors, a 15-year-old. Connor Bedard's a 15-year-old as well. Different styles of play, but very offensive, both of them. Connor Bedard, is in second in scoring, almost 2 points a game. He's a 15-year-old, one of the first 15-year-olds ever to be given permission, early status to join the WHL. We've always seen it in the OHL and the Q, but we've never seen it in the Dub, and he's the first player to do so, and rightfully so. This kid is a talent. He sees the puck extremely well. He has great vision on the ice, and the Regina Pats, his home team, is using him accordingly, giving him the ice time and the playing time, the touches, to see him really thrive in a big boy game. I mean, his shot is lethal. He's making phenomenal passes, and he's pretty responsible on the defensive side of the puck. So, I mean, Connor Bedard is the real thing. Make no mistake. You're going to see his name, not this draft, but the following draft, the 22 draft, potentially. And you're going to see him. He's going to be that guy. He's going to be that 1, that 2.
The one guy that we talked about, and I remember doing the preview show for the World Juniors, like the preview, and the rosters weren't even out yet. We were talking about one guy in general, and that's Shane Wright. How has Shane Wright played this season? How has he kind of evolved?
Shane Wright is that player that, he's still in the weeds a little bit. And by that, I mean, I think he still has a great deal of potential. I don't want to say he's not playing as good as expected, but here's a guy that, is doing he's not I know he can play better. I know that he can do well. And I know that we've seen better out of him. Shane Wright is certainly a player that has zero lack of potential and kinetically can move atop any list in every category he should succeed in. So, I see him going fairly high in his draft year as well.
Canada seems to always produce these first round picks. Now, with some of these guys, they're not making. I'm not hearing these names outside of the World Juniors or when the World Juniors were. Why do you think we're not hearing these names as fast as we heard in the World Juniors?
Because and that's the thing. I mean, without playing hockey in Canada, we normally would see in a regular season draft rankings in November, draft rankings in the middle of January. We'd see them around this time of year when the regular season of the NHL is finished out, because we want to see how NHL organizations are looking at these potential players that are going to join them in the next year or two, because they want to make sure they're looking at the best potential. Now, like we've talked in every Big Four sport, you're drafting on potential. You're drafting on these players amongst their peers, amongst the same age group. Several things need to be taken into account. Number one, again, you look at a team that's got a high draft pick. Let's take the New Jersey Devils, for example. They have Hughes and they have Nico Hischier. Both are playing fairly decent, but they're under the radar because they play for a low-market New Jersey Devils squad. They're not an exciting team. They're probably not going to make the playoffs. And you ask yourself, is this team going to help these two young players, or does it hurt them and hinder them by playing with them? Let's look at Taylor Hall. Taylor Hall was drafted by the Edmonton Oilers. He then moved to Phoenix, or Arizona, I should say. And now he's in New Jersey as well, or Buffalo. He moved to New Jersey, then he moved to Buffalo. So here's a player that, excelled really well. He was I believe he was a Hart Trophy winner in New Jersey, of all places. But you take him away from those two young stars, and now the two young stars don't have a role model. And you look at all of these younger players, they need someone to follow in footsteps, or at least learn by example, lean on them by example. We're not seeing that done since, even Nathan McKinnon's paved his way. Connor McDavid has certainly paved his own way. Sidney Crosby had Mario Lemieux to look up to, still in the organization. Sure, if they had to have conversations, they would. But you need to have that pedigree and that opportunity to learn from a veteran on that squad. I don't see that happening with this, only because we're unsure of how people see this upcoming draft. They haven't played all year. They've played maybe 9 games or 7 games in a World Junior Series. And now that if they're playing in the WHL or in the Q, they've played partial seasons. Now in the USHL, that's why they're getting a lot more recognition, because they're almost playing a full regular season. I think they have about 15 or 20 games left. They're going to go into the middle of May at least. So, at least they have the opportunity to play a full season. Well, that takes into account a huge detriment to the Canadian players, because their sample size is only 24 games, if that. Maybe a little bit more. Like a full season is at least 68 plus playoffs. So we're seeing a quarter of a season potentially here, Joe. And it's hard to look at how a season had finished in 2019, 2020 at the beginning of a pandemic, without playoffs, without anything like that. And now having them play nearly a year later and only a 24-game sample size with how much development, we have no idea. And we're not even thinking about the mental health and the anxiety issues that these players may have, or may occur, or have occurred in the last 13 months. So there's a lot of open-ended questions, a lot of T's that haven't been crossed, and certainly a lot of I's that need to be relooked at.
Yeah, there are definitely some I's that need to be looked at. Now, in our next segment, we'll be talking more hockey. The trade deadline's coming up. We'll be talking about guys that could be on the move, what teams could do. We'll talk about that right after this here on Crunch Time.
Hey Crunch Time fans, my name is Graham Forsyth. I'm the host of Coffee with Graham and the Prospect Show on ASTV Productions. On Coffee with Graham, I talk to athletes, coaches, and whoever else involved in the amateur sports scene in Manitoba and Saskatchewan. And on the Prospect Show, I talk to the best young hockey prospects from around North America. You can catch all the coverage on ASTV Productions. You can catch Coffee with Graham on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 10:30 a.m. Central Time. And for the Prospect Show, that show airs every Friday at 8 p.m. Central Time. Hope to see you there. Have a good.
Welcome back to Crunch Time here on ASTV Productions. So you have a guy, the aforementioned Taylor Hall. He was a healthy scratch tonight because for fear of injury before trade negotiations. How's this going to play out?
It's a good question. I mean, here's a guy, he's one of two players in Buffalo that does not have a no trade clause, yet he's already explained to the organization that he's willing to listen to trade and trade talks, as he should. I mean, Buffalo is certainly not one of those. Pardon me?
A dumpster fire, and I'll put it that way.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm sorry to even interrupt you there, but it makes so much sense. They can't seem to get out of their own way. They always have talented rosters, but yet they can't seem to get out of their own way, Theo.
It's cohesion. It's like saying that lamb and tuna fish are a terrific pair. This doesn't work. You've got so many. You can have all the talent, you can have all the grace, you can have all God's gift to this glory game of hockey, but if you have no chemistry and zero cohesion and no glue, no one wants to go in the corners, no one wants to help each other out, that's the definition of the Buffalo Sabres. I mean, they fired Jason Botterill last year as a GM. They got rid of Coach Ralph Kruger, who is a brilliant mind. I mean, both soccer and hockey style, good Winnipeg boy. Both Winnipeg boys, as far as I'm concerned, if you want to call it that. Jason's now with Seattle. Going to do great things there next year. I know that for a fact. But Buffalo just has no identity. They have no – they've got Dahlin, they've got Jack Eichel, they've got Taylor Hall, they got Dylan Cousins, they got Reinhart, they got, Skinner. But Skinner's doing absolutely nothing. He's got a Sam Bradford contract as far as I'm concerned. They traded the worst goaltender possible out to Colorado, I believe. And now they don't have any good goaltending in Buffalo. Outside of folding the team, they're ranked lower than the Seattle Kraken in terms of players, good players. And what happens with Taylor Hall? You trade him. You try and get some or a couple of different draft picks that are going to help rebuild this team, because outside of rebuilding this team, I don't know what you can do, Joe. And where is he going to go? There's three teams. There's Colorado that's really interested. Toronto is really interested. And I believe it's not St. Louis that wants to have Taylor Hall in their lineup.
Frankly, I don't want Taylor Hall. Here's why. If I'm the Blues, we already have a cancer or two in the clubhouse, in my mind. At this point, you have to think that way, because you don't go on a 7-game losing streak without having some problems. So, in my mind, and I said this to Scott, that the common denominator here is Mike Hoffman. Getting Mike Hoffman out of St. Louis would be the best thing for this team right now.
So why don't you put him and your boy Dunny on a
but that won't get Taylor Hall, will it? That's not going to get Taylor Hall. Well, what will that get you, though?
Okay, so you put those two guys together and you give a couple of draft picks up. Certainly not a first rounder, but maybe a first. You know what? Go and give a first rounder up this year. And here's why. If you expect St. Louis to go far in the playoffs, it's going to be a mid-teens, upper-teens draft pick. So what?
As of right now, they're a 500 team.
And you're saying to
and
me,
you're
Joe,
3 points out of a playoff spot.
You're telling me that Taylor Hall is a cancer. How?
Why couldn't they win? Why couldn't he win in any place he was? Whoa. Especially those Edmonton teams. Those Edmonton teams had some talent.
He was young.
Didn't have.
He was learning.
Get it. But how many years did Edmonton have the first overall pick and it never panned out?
Well, they had Taylor Hall, they had Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, they had Neil Yakupov. Yakupov didn't mesh out the way he wanted, so he got shipped out. I don't think he's playing hockey anymore. Nuge is still sticking it out, and he's doing really well. Him and Taylor Hall were a good tandem. The problem was in Edmonton, they didn't have the finances they thought to keep both of them, knowing that they had other two guys coming in 97 and 29. And here's the dilemmas where you build a team, but you have 35% of your salary into 4 players. And that's hard to build a team when that amount of money is going through. Now, thankfully, it's being managed somehow in Toronto. I mean, they are getting lights-out goaltending by Jake Campbell right now, who's gone 9-0 in his last 9 as a starter. But those top 6 forwards are lethal. Yes. How do you fit Taylor Hall in Toronto? I don't think you can financially. You're going to have to give up a lot more. But if you're looking to get rid of a couple of guys that, aren't necessarily blue chippers, but do still have an upside, Hoffman could still score goals. Dunn had potentially a first-round draft pick on the line last year before he got signed. Okay. Throw those 2 guys in there. You got to score more goals. Your leading goal scorer only has 13 goals on the season, Joe. And yes, Dave Perron got a beautiful shot, but he's not supposed to be your leading goal scorer. Got to have other guys there. Taylor Hall could be that guy.
A lot of people want Vladdy Tarasenko out of here. I don't understand why. Can you explain that to me? You watch a lot of hockey.
Oh, I can't because, and that goes for the whole saying, "What have you done for me now?" versus "What have you done me in the past?" What are you doing for me now? Tarasenko isn't doing much. We already talked about him last night. He's playing third-line minutes with a bunch of third-liners. Barbashev and Tyler Bozak.
Thank you.
So you've got 2 decent players, but certainly not first-line players. You got to get on. You got to get them back on the horse. You don't trade Vlad Tarasenko. You don't. I also think, like you said, you lost 2 veteran quality players last year in Alex Pietrangelo and the retired Alex Steen. Those hurt. You haven't replaced them.
Yeah. And the Blues defense right now is undersized and everything else. But let's get off the Blues because they weren't playing tonight. What are some of the other things that you've been hearing in terms of certain guys being on? Oh, one more thing for Taylor Hall. Could either Montreal or Winnipeg?
Winnipeg won't take him because Winnipeg right now, okay, and you can put me on quote on this, even though SI.com has said it a couple of days ago now. I said from the beginning, as soon as they made that Pierre-Luc Dubois trade, once that has started to muster and work, they've got the best 12 forwards on any roster. They've got, and the big difference is right now, Joe, is their third line. Like their first 2 lines are 1A, 1B any given night. I mean, you got a line of veterans, you got a line of speedsters. Your third line's, hungry to get the puck. All 3 of them have career best in goals this season. I mean, you've got 9 forwards that are scoring at will. The one problem offensively for the Winnipeg Jets is their defense. They ranked 30 or 31 in goals from the blue line. I think they've got 4, which is not very many. It's the worst in the league. So that could be a bit of a struggle, but it's not to say that the defense aren't jumping into the play. They're just allowing the offense coming from the front forwards. And they're pumping pucks in. I mean, last night's game against Ottawa got pushed up a couple of days because of the Vancouver COVID. They were up 4-1 in the third. Now, they let a couple of goals late in last night for the Sens to make it a 4-3 final, but PLD was playing good minutes. Matty Pearl was drawing penalties. Kachuk was a dummy just like his brother was the week before. And you know what? You've got a great chemistry between having Dubois and Stastny and Wheeler as one line, Shuffles, Connor, and Ehlers as a second line. Then you've got Kopp, Lowry, and Appleton as your third line. Name 9 better forwards. I mean, outside of Toronto, you're not going to find 9 better forwards anyway. So that's one story coming out of the North. I don't see them going to Montreal because they've made too many moves already. And I think they want to find more balance and not finesse, but they want to form more balance and aggressive forechecking big bodies. Josh Anderson, Tyler Toffoli kind of players.
Could you see a reunion in Edmonton?
No, they don't have the salary cap. That's the one. Now we're looking at it as being the 6th of April. You have 6 days before a deadline. If you're going to make a trade, it's got to happen before the weekend because you have 14-day quarantines. I mean, all of this taken into account, I mean, the top 4 teams are pretty much set up in the North. Toronto, Edmonton, Winnipeg, and then Montreal finishing out. There's like a 7 or 8 point difference between Montreal in the 4th spot and Vancouver, Calgary fighting for 5th. So you got 8 points of separation there already. It's going to be hard to make up those games when you look at the North Division, how the schedule's set up. I'm really surprised that Pittsburgh's ahead of Philadelphia in the is it the East, I believe it is. I thought I had Pittsburgh not making the playoffs, but here's Philadelphia that slid. Massive slide. You want to talk about how bad your St. Louis Blues are playing? Booze, not your Blues, but your Booze.
Well, okay.
Philly Flyers have put a healthy scratch on Carter Hart because he's not trying hard enough. Here's your number 1 goalie. You thought you figured out your goaltending issues for the last decade, but here you haven't. You had Brian Elliott, you had Brizzy in there, a couple other goaltenders, and then you had this guy, Carter Hart. Carter Hart played fantastic hockey last year, but now he's just, for whatever reason, Alain Vigneault thinks his heart isn't in the game and he's been a scratch. So now you got the Flyers sinking. We talked off camera. Barry got to clean the bathroom because I got to go Trout's flying with the Islanders. Great guy. I mean, Dolphin-born, love the guy. Hard-nosed, hasn't buying into his system. But it even started higher up with Lou Lamoriello. I mean, talk about getting rid of a cancer. Here's a guy that probably didn't buy into the program in JT Money, John Tavares. He gets traded to his hometown a couple years back in Toronto. And look what's happened in New York. You got blue-collar, blue-chip, hard-working, lunch-pail crew led by a very talented Matty Barzal, injured Anders Lee, and they're still doing very well on the east side. Pretty good stuff. Now, Florida's another one. We talked about Joel Quenneville leading that Florida Panther squad. They still have single-digit losses. Last time I checked, they were 25-9 and change.
All right. Taylor Hall to Florida? I mean, no.
Well, I mean, I shouldn't say no, but I mean, Taylor Hall is a goal scorer. Taylor Hall needs to have that fire rekindled under his arse. And he's got to find a home and a place to rekindle that. He needs a playmate. He needs a line mate with him. So where do I see that? I mean, that's why I mentioned St. Louis. That's why.
I mean, well, here's the thing, though. They're not scoring goals as it is, and they're not playing inspired hockey. So that's why I say I don't know about St. Louis, because there are guys in this team that, aren't buying in. It's sad because how many times, and I hate to go back to St. Louis here, but how many times or how many coaches have gone through St. Louis in the past, 30 years? A lot.
Sure, but the last one that won a Stanley Cup is still there. And that's not too far removed.
And they want to talk about, if Scott made this point, and I want to ask you this since you're more of the hockey guy too. If you're the Blues and you miss the playoffs, or better yet, you miss the playoffs and you're worst in the West, all right, because there's a chance that happens. Is Craig Berube on the hot seat?
No.
Answer that. Why?
No, he won't be the last in the West because Anaheim will be there.
But you know what I mean. Just
if they don't make the playoffs, I think there'll be a discussion happening. You're not going to get rid of Craig Berube though, and I say that wholeheartedly and confidently because Craig Berube is a very good coach. There are a lot of players that just need to understand that this is a different season. And you need to come back to the constructs of what the St. Louis Blues hockey is. Did they get lucky with a hot Binnington? Absolutely. I'm not going to deny that, nor will any Blues fan deny that. Are they going to get hot with maybe a Tarasenko popping in a couple and getting warmed up again now because playoffs are about to come around? We don't know. Ryan O'Reilly. I mean, here's a guy that, heart and soul of a team. You could have a closed door meeting. I don't think I've heard them St. Louis Blues have a closed door meeting yet this year.
Well, they need to, or someone.
Maybe that's something. Maybe there is something that's got to happen, and you know what? Maybe bringing in a number 4 from Buffalo could rekindle a little bit of fires for a lot of those players there too.
Okay, what about this? Get Sanford, and get Bortuzzo, put them in a ring, and have them box. Hey, it happened before, and the Blues turned it around. It seemed like after that.
I'm boxing, kidding, whatever. I was
hey,
undefeated in locker boxing. Did my team go undefeated? No, but
no. This was during practice. You didn't hear about this?
I know. I heard about it. I mean, but that's the thing. I mean, when emotions boil over, it tells me one of two things: things are really rotten in the state of Denmark, or players are just fed up with not seeing the results they should. And if players are upset without seeing the results they should, then they themselves should hold themselves each accountable for their actions and get started. I mean, sure, teams will go on droughts left or right or up and down. They might have 2 or 3 game or 7 game droughts, or thank God the Buffalo Sabres have 18 losses in a row. But the good teams will know that these are either learning mistakes or something we learn from. We quickly remove that from the memory and we go out and play our next hardest game tomorrow.
Well, look, the Blues got a tough schedule. If you looked at the month of April for the Blues, they got Vegas, Colorado, you got Minnesota, and you have the damn Coyotes 2 more times. So if you're the Blues, now's the time to get going. So we'll see what happens. But coming up next here on Crunch Time, we'll be talking a little baseball the next 2 segments. So stick here on Crunch Time. Welcome back to Crunch Time here on ASTV Productions. Joe alongside Theo, and they've just announced, Major League Baseball has just announced that Coors Field in Colorado will be the site for this year's AllStar Game. It's been over, it's been what, 22 years since Colorado's had an AllStar Game? I think the last time I saw Colorado hosting an All-Star game, Ken Griffey Jr. won that home run derby.
Yep,
that was a fun derby. But no, I can't wait to see the home run derby this year, especially with some of these guys. You know, especially think about this: the Cardinals have a former Rocky at third base in Nolan Arenado. Wouldn't that be a great homecoming? I mean, go on, think about it.
Would he get booed or would he get cheered? Number 1.
Okay, so the way everything went in Colorado, you can't really boo the player. You got to boo the front office. I don't know if you've read anything in terms of, fire British. I'm sure you heard that. Yeah. Well, you can't blame Nolan Arenado, and thankfully he's out of that hellhole in Colorado, because for whatever reason they just can't win there. Actually, I know the reason. Because you can't develop a pitcher that can pitch in Colorado. How do you pitch in Colorado?
You pitch low, ground balls. You don't pitch anything high in the fastball lane. That's how you pitch in Colorado. I mean, I'm kind of, here's Major League. I'm a bit bittersweet on their decisions over the last week, 10 days. I totally support them for the decision getting rid of the getting rid of the All-Star Game in Atlanta. I appreciate the fact that they're trying to still create the developments within inner city Atlanta, as well as give homage to the late Hank Aaron. But why move the game to Colorado? Because you want to see more home runs? I saw you had a home run derby last year that saw, Vlad Jr., a player who wasn't even 21 years old, launch like 59 homers over the course of a home run derby. What do you think is going to happen in Colorado? Of course it's going to be excited. If they don't hit over 100 home runs in that home run derby, something's wrong with the balls. Something's wrong with the bats, or the players are just not into it to play an All-Star game. Why wasn't the game moved to Milwaukee, where if you're going to respect and give homage to a great player in the one Hank Aaron, who played almost a dozen seasons, I believe, with the Brewers, move it there. When's the last time an All-Star game was in Milwaukee? I don't know.
The last time it was in Milwaukee, they couldn't finish it. If you remember, I don't know if you remember this, Bud Selig had to stop the game because both teams ran out of pitchers.
Right. So let's finish that. You know what? And why not have a greater storyline? Let's finish the game. Let's have some fun with this. I mean, I'm not saying start the game over with brand new pitchers, but I'm saying why it makes no sense to put a Hank Aaron, thank you special in Colorado where he has no affinity to any ballpark whatsoever. Like, it's after his time. Like, I understand if you go to Cooperstown, play the game at Cooperstown. Limit the fans, play it there, do it upright, But, or Milwaukee. I mean, I get that, but I mean, outside of trying to make the game itself exciting for long balls in Colorado, I don't see any other reason why it needs to be there. You've been better off putting it in Toronto for 2 days.
That won't happen. You know why?
Well, I know it won't happen, but I'm just saying, if you want to make a spectacle of something, why not send it to Toronto?
Maybe not next year because it's in LA next year.
It's in LA. Not going to happen.
But the year after, I'd love to see it in Toronto. I'd love to see, because you want to talk about ballparks that it's easy to hit, like the ball flies out of there. What ballparks do you think of, Theo? Philadelphia, Pittsburgh,
Philly, Coors Field.
Pittsburgh. Would you say Pittsburgh?
Yeah, I mean, the other thing is you look at how picturesque some of these ballparks are. I mean, a lot of players don't. I mean, let's give it a take. Today's another anniversary day of Camden Yards in Baltimore being named Camden. I think it was like 41 years ago. But if you were to play at Camden Yards, that's like almost playing at Wrigley or Comiskey or
Fenway.
Like some of these Fenway and Yankee. I kind of look the same way, but I mean, you look at how Camden is set up. It's not that bowl-esque 3-layered outfield, 100 meters to each short porch and, whatever it is, 396 feet to the middle. It's got its quirks. It's got its pieces. It's got its outdoor feel. You could make it an afternoon game on a Sunday. It could be fun. But no, we're going to go to Coors Field because we want to see home runs and we want to see how loaded those baseballs are, and let's have some fun, right?
Yeah, I mean, well, I think I don't know the reasoning they put it in Colorado. I'd like to know the reasoning. My dad has a theory that it's because Colorado's losing a lot with the low attendance based off of Nolan Arenado. And I say bullshit to that. You know why? Because they've had some good crowds in Colorado. I mean, for what the capacity limit is, their crowds have not been bad. So I wouldn't say that. But
what was the stat that I shared last? I think it was last month. I think when I was on with you and Scott, that Colorado's fan support has been like top 10 in the last decade. They've had a top 10 fan support every year, and they've had a crappy product on the field. They've got great players, but they haven't had a over 500 season in quite a while. I haven't checked the stats, but there's so many other ballparks you could pick. So many. I mean, like there's outside of trying to make the game excited to view and enjoy long balls and put pitchers on Murderer's Row. That's the only thing I see in Colorado. Don't tell me it's fan support, because that's garbage.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this. How would you feel about, and hear me out, bringing Chris Berman back for this? Back.
I mean, Boomer's a legend. I mean, it goes without saying. I mean, to meet that guy was one of my all-time favorite evenings at a charity function here in Winnipeg. The bottom line is, you could bring a lot of guys out of retirement. You really could. But I mean, even if Chris just showed up to have fun with ESPN and did a couple of guests, but that's all I would expect from him. I mean,
yeah, I just like. I mean, I grew up to Chris Berman.
I'm gonna throw this one out at you for AllStar Games for the upcoming season. So you take the World Series. The winner of the World Series gets the AllStar Game the upcoming year.
No, because what if we see a dynasty?
Who gives a shit?
What if that rule was in play when the Giants won 3 in 6 years? What if that would have been dumb? Now, I feel like.
Are you saying that it's unfair?
You know where I wish. Are you
saying answer that question? Are you saying it's unfair?
It'd be unfair depending on if you have a dynasty. What if the Yankees go in? Remember the late '90s, early 2000s Yankees? All right. Well,
they won 3 World Series in 7 years. Derek Jeter's won 3 World Series in his career before he retired.
Okay. Why don't you just a thought? Why not put it in Arlington in that new warehouse-looking ballpark they have? I say warehouse. Have you seen the roof?
Yeah, there was 40,000 fans there for the Blue Jays. It was fantastic. Yeah, it was great to see.
No, I know. So why not showcase a ballpark like that? If you're not going to pay homage to Hank Aaron with the place you're going to bring it to, why not put it in Texas?
Sure.
That ball flies. That ball
just don't put it. Just do me a favor. Don't put it in Houston for a while.
Yeah, Houston doesn't deserve anything. That is for sure. Theo,
we haven't talked about Odor going to the Yankees.
Yeah. That we'll get to that next. Speaking of which. Okay. Rugi Odor was traded to the New York Yankees from the Texas Rangers. This was a guy a few years back that, after clocking Jose Bautista, really hasn't been the same. Which, by the way, since you're on here, I got to ask you, when that happened, what was your instant reaction?
I mean, everybody I remember working that night at the local establishment, and we were just roaring that entire series against Texas because the bat flip, and you looked at the roster head to toe. I mean, that battling lineup was as lethal as we've seen since the early 90s when they went to the World Series. The problem was there was no pitching. Now, when he got clocked, everyone was like, boo, kick him out, yada, yada, yada. I'm like, part of baseball, man. Like, if somebody did that to me and slid dirty in the second, you damn right I'd throw a little something at him and give him what for. I'd be mad as hell. And you know what? He hasn't been the same player since. What he's going to bring to the Yankees, I have no idea. It could be another Jose Reyes situation where you've got a player after his prime and you're going to pay him out.
This is a head scratcher to me because even he wasn't a good player in Texas anymore. Maybe a change of scenery would do him good, but I thought the Yankees already had a second baseman.
I thought they did too, but I've been known to be wrong.
All right. What about a trade? So Orlando Arcia goes from Milwaukee to Atlanta. This is another head-scratching move. You didn't really hear anything about this before it happened. What does this move do for Atlanta, which, by the way, lost another one again? They are 0-6. Well, I'll get to the scoreboard in the next segment. But they are now 0-6 after a walk-off home run by Soto. But what does this do for an Atlanta team who I thought – I mean, it's still early, but they don't look good, man.
What can I say about Atlanta? I mean, they've got the MOP from last year in their first baseman in Freeman, and they've got a couple of good pieces that are still doing well there. But giving up 3 young pitchers for Arcia, I'm a head scratcher as well. I mean, it's 0-6, not a great chance, not a great way to start the season. But we know there's a lot of talent left on that field. There's a lot of good ball players. Bats just got to be – maybe they got to find a real live chicken instead of a bucket of Kentucky Fried Chicken like Cleveland did. And, start shaking the voodoo around and getting Atlanta going because they're a pretty special team. I like the way they play. They just got to get woken up somehow.
Yeah, that's for sure. We will come back and continue this baseball conversation right after this break here on Crunch Time.
Theo here on ASTV. Check out my show Tuesdays and Thursdays, 6 p.m. on the ice. Me and my guests break down all of the hottest and latest topics surrounding the world of hockey.
Until you tell me, Theo.
I'm getting rid of that one. So
you're getting rid of that one?
Yeah, I'm going to walk in. I'm just going to get rid of that one because I got to redo it.
Are you? Oh, you're going to redo it? Well, you need to send it to me, of course. But
I will send it to you. I will
every time we do a show together, I have to play that. I don't know why I have to play it. But let's talk about some other teams, Theo, that have gotten off the hot starts. And let's go to Toronto because the thing is, we talked about the 40,000 seat stadium in Texas. But how about Toronto's play in general? They've been pretty good out of the gate.
They took 2 or 3 out of New York. They won last night against Texas, I believe. I don't know what they did today.
They lost today, I believe, like 5.
Did they lose today?
It was 5-1. 5-1 the last time I checked. I'll go look at the scoreboard in a second, but go ahead.
No worries. But, I mean, big and first and foremost, the big 3 in Biggio, Bichette, and Vlad Jr. Bichette's the fastest Blue Jay in history to 100 hits. I did not see that coming. Tremendous year last year. Really lit the fire. Springer, Gurriel Jr. I mean, they got some players there that can ball. Like the potential of that lineup. Some people call it disgusting. Now, it could be a disgusting good and disgusting bad. And I think they're referring to disgusting good because there's like 7 guys. Hernandez, you throw in the mix. Arenas, you throw in the mix. There's 7 or 8 guys there. Kirk, behind the plate, they can hit the long ball. They can play the ball, but they can also play small ball and get around the bases too. They're fast. They're young. They're speedy. Outside of Hernandez, that up to down bottom, that from top to bottom, it's a quick lineup. But that bullpen, like I said yesterday, Ryu still being that one, but their youngsters, they're not over pitching them. They're only giving them between 80 to 100 pitches, getting through 4, getting through 5 innings. Middle reliever potential has got to be there, and they got to be on the ball at all times. So I like the way they've started to play. I like how they're getting everybody involved. They're getting their feet wet right off the hop, so they're getting used to this long season. We also know that it's not who finishes first or how fast you finish. It's a long, steady journey through a Major League Baseball season. I saw somewhere the over-under on the number of games in New York that the judge will be missing, as well as number 24 will be missing, and whether or not it's plus or minus 50. I'm thinking, is it plus or minus 50 per or 50 in total? That's going to be a big question for the success of the New York Yankees. Playing second fiddle will be the New York Mets, always, still. No matter how much money they pay their players, they will not be the Yankees. They will always be the Mets.
Even if they win a World Series? Even if they win a World Series in the next 5 years?
You know what? I hope, what has been like, okay, so last year, the Los Angeles Dodgers spent an absorbent amount of money.
Probably $1 billion, right? I mean, am I wrong on that?
Huge. Like it's one of those things where we've heard that philosophy or that, debate. You can't buy your roster. You can't buy a World Series. Well, the Dodgers did it last year. That was a 60-game season. You make all the excuses you want. But Steinbrenner spent a crunch load of money for decades and only came out with 1 or 2 World Series every decade. Should have been a perennial dynasty, if you will. Tampa Bay winning a couple. Houston winning in there. Boston stealing a couple. I mean, that AL East group has been the powerhouse up until what Los Angeles did and now what they in San Diego will do here in the upcoming years. I mean, big news out of San Diego as well.
I would thank you. Thank you. So there's some big time news out of San Diego. Not very good for the sport. And Fernando Tatis Jr. goes on the injured list with a separated shoulder. I can't pronounce the injury, So I'm just going to say heavily separated shoulder, which could put him out for 6 months.
Yeah, it's a subluxated left shoulder.
What does that mean? Is that basically just a – okay.
Subluxated is just a fancy word to say dislocated shoulder. And what they do is science Theo, chiropractic Theo, here we go. There we go. So there's the ball. There's the socket of the shoulder. Here's the head of the humerus, the funny bone. And when he swung through, it separated, and it came right out of the socket. So inside the socket is what's called the labrum, and it's got 4 muscle tendons and a bunch of ligaments that are going to try and attach that head of the humerus into the scapula, into that socket area. And that's come loose. What that means is you now have to either reattach it to the labrum, which is probably going to happen. You have to re-strengthen the 4 muscles that attach in and around the shoulder blade and the scapula onto the humerus. And you have to realign those ligaments so that everything is tight again. Now, when you don't move anything for a long period of time, it's going to create scar tissue. Scar tissue then has to weaken again or open itself up to become lengthened to the right location. And then you're going to have to reteach the swing to Fernando Tatis Jr. So, good thing you got paid.
Yeah, this could be the end for Tatis.
No, I don't think
not
this isn't Bo Jackson hip surgery ending.
This could be the end of his big time productivity. He could be a good player. I say that because look at the swing. How are you going to learn to swing where you're not? If you're Fernando Tatis Jr., what does that swing look like that isn't torque filled? You know what I mean?
Well, that's the interesting thing is when you watch him, how that left shoulder separated was really interesting because that's his front shoulder. And we all think just like in a pitching scenario too, as much as the arm is accelerating or moving through a motion, the decelerating muscles have to work twice as hard. If you think about it, if you're accelerating your arm forward to throw a 100-mile-an-hour fastball consistently over 90 pitches, your decelerating muscles that are attached at the back of the shoulder onto that humerus have to work twice as hard to say, listen, pal, your force towards the plate has to be met by a doubling force that's going to keep you back. So same thing with a swing, a baseball swing. Mm-hmm. But the fact that it's in the front shoulder is interesting because it is a bit of a torque. It is a different style of force, and how it leaves, how the shoulder separates like that. I have to watch the replay a little bit more to get some more identity on how that actually happened.
That's scary. That replay there. I say that this could be because he's gonna have to redo his swing because no, look, I have people in the background saying he'll be fine. I get it. He may be fine, but at the same time, the way he swings, you're gonna have to rework that swing, man. You're going to have to if you want a long career. If you want to earn
23.
He's 23, so that's what I mean. I think he'll be fine, but it may be a long road back for him in terms of the production that he was putting up. It may be a down year, maybe next year. You know what I mean? Like because you have to take so long to get your swing back, and that swing, he can't swing like that again.
You know I think he'll be able to swing like that again because we've seen success and the advancements of a Tommy John surgery on the UCL of an elbow. There's advancements in a shoulder, touching and, rehabbing a shoulder in the same way. And as long as he has the memory, like the brain memory, the muscle memory, to reestablish that swing, I think he'll be okay. I think he'll be able to swing.
Maybe he'll need to lay off a little bit. I mean, even a Fernando Tatis Jr. laid off. That's a scary thing. So hopefully he gets better, and we see him have many great years in the show. That's all I want to see because that's great for this. That's great for the game. So speaking of great players in this game, Mike Trout hit a hanging curveball. Okay, he hit a hanging curveball 464 feet. He did that the other night too. There's nothing that Mike Trout does on a baseball field that ceases to amaze me. Like I don't get it, man. I should say, this is normal by now, but my gosh, man.
Did I send you that video a couple weeks back of Mike Trout at the driving range? Do you remember me sending you that video where he hits that ball out of the fence over the back fence of the driving range?
Yeah.
That's like almost like Bryson DeChambeau-esque, like yard. And he's killing it, man. Like, the best thing about that play was the batter before in Shohei Ohtani with the dribbler, and he beats the throw on a bum leg. He beats the throw, and then it's a 2. I don't know if they were tied after 5 at 2-2, but still, those two guys back to back is pretty awesome.
Let's get to that now. Speaking of which, so Shohei Ohtani pitched and hit in the same game.
Yep.
What do you think of that?
Good.
First of all,
he's a talent. Give it to him. I mean, why not? I mean, like we said yesterday, he's a guy that's going to want to do both. Don't limit his abilities. Use it for all he's worth.
Yeah, I think you need to pick one.
No.
Just for wait. Let me finish. For longevity's sake, you need to pick one.
Well,
Shohei Ohtani's in his early 20s too.
He is, but look at his ability. That's like saying to Gretzky, "I only want you to shoot. I don't want you to pass." That's what his mindset is saying. Why tell me I can only do one when I know I can do both very well? And I think he should be allowed to do both very well. That is me. Not because I'm an Angels fan, and not because I'm concerned to see him not playing in 10 or 12 years down the road in an Angels uniform. I just feel that this transcends the game a little differently. That shows players outside of North America, or maybe in North America in the upcoming future, that have that ability to pitch off a mound and hit the ball well too, because they should be able to. Why should a Little League player, when you watch Little League World Series, Joe, why is it the pitcher that always has the most home runs on a team? Why can't we see a player continue to work that? It's only because the rules and the guidelines tell you at 18 that says, hey, pitchers don't hit balls. But outfielders hit balls, or first basemen hit balls, or pitchers only pitch. And that's when a player says, well, I got to pick one or the other. Why tell a player to do that? If they're able to throw 90-plus heat and they can knock it yard 400 feet, go. Just do it. Train yourself.
It's amazing what Ohtani can do. Now, your Angels are off to a hot start. Do you see this? Being a year where they make the playoffs?
You know, it's funny because we talked last night about Tony La Russa. We didn't talk about Joe Madden, and I think as great of a manager as Mike Scioscia was for so many years, Joe Madden brings a different style to that game that might be a little more exciting for the base pads. Top to bottom, I think Anaheim always has a fast team. They've got a little bit of bats, and obviously they got a big bat in Trout, no matter what. But it's really going to come down to every other team's problem. How are they going to manage pitching off the mound? And will it be something that's of a success, or will it get lamented on halfway through the season?
Yeah, that will be interesting to find out as well. The Los Angeles Dodgers and Oakland Athletics are they are playing right now. What is it with Oakland, man? I'll go through the schedule, go through this scoreboard, and then I'll ask you in a second. So, today your finals are as follows: the Atlanta Braves and the Washington Nationals. Nationals walked the Braves off thanks to Juan Soto. That game ended 6-5. Baltimore and New York. New York just outslugs Baltimore. They just look like a team that, you know, they're going to overwhelm Baltimore all the time. It's sad because I like to see Baltimore have a little more success, but for obvious reasons, they don't have a lot of guns. St. Louis and Miami, the Cardinals win 4-2 in that game. Right now in Boston, middle of the 10th inning, the Tampa Bay Rays are tied with the Boston Red Sox 3-3. You have the Toronto Blue Jays losing to the Texas Rangers 7-4. You have the Minnesota Twins losing to the Detroit Tigers in Detroit by a final 4-3. The Houston Astros and the Los Angeles Angels Houston wins 4-2. They stay hot. The Pittsburgh Pirates and Cincinnati Reds. The Pittsburgh Pirates only scored 1 run. The Cincinnati Reds blew them out of the water 14-1. And the New York Mets and Philadelphia Phillies are playing right now. The Mets are enjoying an 8-3 lead in the bottom of the 9th inning. Before we get out of here, I have one more scoreboard, but I want to ask you, what the hell's going on with Oakland?
Should I be worried about Oakland?
Yeah.
Why?
You start
to me, I mean, that's a team that gets rid of great talent. They don't have a salary they can match. They're very much like Tampa. They are a Moneyball analytics kind of crew.
Yeah, but when you start out 0-5, there's definitely...
When Atlanta starts out 0-6, who's going to finish higher? I'm still going to take the Braves over the A's. Unless you want to take the A's and see where they're at in September.
We'll see, but I just...
You're going to take the...
I know it's not how you start. It's how you finish.
Take the A's. I'll take the Braves. Let's see who finishes higher.
All right. What's in? Are we wagering anything? Like any fun wager?
You think about it.
I'll think about it. I'll even ask Wags and Scott this one because they might have a little fun with this.
Sure, I'll take the Braves. The crunch time crew can take the A's.
All right. So I'm gonna read one more scoreboard here. The NHL scoreboard from today. You have Boston beating Philadelphia 4-2. You have Buffalo beating New Jersey 5-3. You have the New York Islanders winning a barn burner 1-0. I know I said barn burner without fans, but still, it's a barn burner. You have the Chicago Blackhawks beating the Dallas Stars 4-2. That's a team that really never got their footing under them. It's scary if you think about it. With over 6 minutes left in the first period, you have the Anaheim Ducks leading the San Jose Sharks 1-0. And you said that Anaheim would be last in the West. You're forgetting about San Jose. I mean, they're a bad team too, right?
You know what? They're not going to finish in the top 4. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
I mean, the fact that the LA Kings are doing what they're doing this year is pretty impressive with the veterans that are leading that team.
It really is. They remind me of the San Francisco Giants in the major leagues. That might be a bad comparison, but it could not be. So you got the Columbus Blue Jackets doubling up the Tampa Bay Lightning 4-2. That game in Columbus, you have the Pittsburgh Penguins losing to the New York Rangers 8-4. You have the Carolina Panthers winning 5-2 over Florida. How many losses does that make Florida now?
That's 10 or 11 now.
Okay, so they do have double digits.
They just got into double-digit losses. Yeah.
All right, and then you have Nashville and Detroit. I'm not finding a final score in this one. I think Nashville beat Detroit 3-2. I could be wrong, but that's what my scoreboard's saying. So
Nashville won in a shootout 3-2.
Shootout 3-2. Oh, okay. I just didn't know what the scoreboard I was looking at was doing real quick. But it's been a good show tonight, Theo. Anything else before we get out of here tonight?
No. Well, one thing. I know it's only Tuesday, but I hope everyone's looking forward to the most beautiful weekend of the year if you're a PGA fan. If you haven't remembered, it's the Masters. It's starting tomorrow with the Par 3 Challenge. They're coming back to a partial fan group without Tiger Woods. Hopefully a lot of the players have talked about his recovery over the last 6-7 weeks, but it will not be the same Masters weekend without Sunday Red or Tiger Woods on the course, but should be a beautiful weekend. Good to see the azaleas, and it's always wonderful. Let's hear how many birds get chirped in, Joe. That's always a funny discussion to have with the boys, the commentators.
Anatomically?
Yes.
Chirped in? Okay.
Have you heard about that story?
No, I haven't, but I think we're out of...
If you listen to when the players are swinging, you'll hear chirp, 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 chirp. You'll hear the birds chirping a little bit louder. Maybe that's because the fans are quieter, but you'll hear more birds, and there's a bit of a theory that they're pumping in bird sounds.
Wow, that would be interesting. I'd like to have a PGA guy on just to do an interview and see if that's real or if that's, I don't know. That would be
right
interesting.
there. 2017. There you go.
That's gonna be. Were you there?
I had a friend of mine. Closest I've been is about an hour and a half from Augusta. So, but I had a friend of mine there. I've had several friends actually go. One of them brought me back one of the flags from 2017, so I was pretty happy about that.
That's awesome. Well, thank you, Theo, for coming on tonight. I can't wait to do it again with you, man. For Theo, I'm Joe Hamilton. Thank you guys for watching. Be safe, everyone. Do the right things. Get the vaccine. Even if you don't agree with it, we want to get back to doing different things. You want to get back to doing different things. So go ahead and do what you got to do. See you guys.